Welcome to the Contract CFO Show, your source for bullshit-free, real talk on finance and business. Here's your host, Michael Anthony.
Welcome back to the Contract CFO Show, the #1 show for learning how to take control of your money and think like a boss. I am your host, Michael Anthony, and today I am jacked up. Our special guest, Brian Pope, is a serial mega successful entrepreneur, overall badass. And I want to call you the $100 million man. I don't know how much you're worth, but you got gold in between your ears, my friend. And it's such an honor to have you on today. And just man, welcome.
Thank you.
So
glad to be here.
Now, for those of you watching, for those of you listening, it doesn't cost you anything aside from what really is, one of our most valuable asset, and that's our time. That said, though, there's a lot of value delivered. We purpose to deliver value on every show. And so with that, what I ask is although there isn't a financial cost, look, if this show is adding value to you, if you're getting something out of this, don't be selfish. The price of entry, the barrier to entry is simply sharing. Help get the word out. Let someone know what you value about them and why this show would speak to you. It's all about grassroots, and you guys, the faithful listeners and watchers, appreciate y'all. Keep kicking ass in life. So with that, Brian, we have a tradition on the Contract CFO Show of celebrating success. And, it's one of those things where I feel like, especially in an entrepreneurial journey, we can get, we're so many of us are just so driven. And it's we're seeing 9, 12, sometimes 2 or 3 steps out, but we're seeing in the future, and we're executing on creating a future that I know for myself, I burned out during a period of my journey because I was consistently focused on the future. And it was like once something I was working on manifested, even in a small way, if I, just making something small happen this week that moves the business forward, I wouldn't take time to celebrate it because I knew that was happening. And it was like, I was just on to the next. And so, we have a segment here, just cheers to you. And right now, for those of you that are regular, listeners, watchers, as long as you're not in the car, get your drinks out. And let's just have a moment to celebrate whatever it is that you have done. And so cheers to, if nothing else, just being in the game of life. And so Brian, I know you, your schedule has been bananas, and you're just been traveling and stuff. Is there anything that you'd want to share with us about, just something to celebrate?
Well, so I'm going to share something with you that I heard yesterday that I thought was really cool. And I think it's a great lesson, right? And it's something that really resonated with me. And I think it's so much bigger than the words. And I think it's very appropriate for this. So we just watched Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, regardless of your team in football, whether you like them or you don't like them. Forget that for just a minute, right? Brady said something really interesting after the Super Bowl that kind of slid past me, and then I heard it again on a podcast, and I was like, man, that's really, really great, right? I mean, it's a really big deal. They asked him, how did you do this? Like, how did you do it? You're with the Patriots, you come to a new team. Think about that. He's 43 years old, right? You come to a new team, and like, how did you pull this off? Because really, if you think about it, it's pretty extraordinary, right? What Tom Brady said,
to me, unprecedented.
What
he's done.
So do you know he's the oldest quarterback to play in the Super Bowl. He's certainly the oldest player to win the Super Bowl. And the player before him that was the oldest was 41. He's 43. Do you know who that player was?
I'm not even gonna. I don't know, Favre. But no,
Tom
no.
Brady. It was Tom
Oh
Brady.
my gosh, really?
Yeah, he won 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
he was 41, which
Yeah.
he was the oldest player to play in or the oldest quarterback to play in the Super Bowl, oldest player to win the Super Bowl. And then this year he beat that record. I thought that was kind of funny. But here's what he said that I thought was really something that I want to share.
Okay.
They said, "How did you do? Like, tell us, like, in a nutshell, how you did." He goes, "We believed in ourselves. We believed in ourselves." Right now, I think what happened is Tom Brady believed in them, right, and it was contagious, right.
Yeah.
Now that's something that just I think that most of us, like when I heard it, I didn't think anything of it until it was brought
I just
later.
wrote that down. I just wrote
Yeah.
that down because that's powerful.
Oh, it really is. So here's the deal. In business, I can tell you that self-confidence is really critical, right? But self-confidence is something that's it's like, it's like the Great Wall of China, one brick at a time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And believing in yourself and self-confidence is one of those things that it's not like the first time Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, oh, that's when he started believing in himself. No, it was all the work up to that point, right? And then the first win was just an affirmation of all the hard work and the little wins, right? All the first downs, all the 1 yard, 1 yard downs,
Just
little tiny things. Yeah. So I'll give you another one, and I tend to explain things in analogies and stories. It just is always the way I've been. But another one is there's a guy out here in California, and you can look him up. He's in the San Jose area, and he's set the world record for running, right? And this guy has run like 500 miles in one stretch, no sleep, no rest. Right? 500 miles. Yes, you can look him up. So they did an interview with him. Yeah, they did an interview with him. He was on 60 Minutes. And they said, like, how on earth do you run 500 miles at once? Like, explain to us, like, how you do something like that. He says, well, it's really not any more complicated than this. I start running, and I pick out, like, a stop sign, and I run to the stop sign. And then once I'm at the stop sign, I pick up, like, a tree, and I run to that tree. There's something I can see. And then I get to that tree, and then I pick out, like, a fence post, and I run to that fence post. And then I pick up something else, and I do that for 500 miles. And they're like, wait a minute. So and he goes, that's what I do. And they're like, that's it? And he goes, that's it. And they said, well, that's astounding. He goes, it's really not that complicated. He goes, if I thought of running 500 miles in one shot, I would never be able to do it. It's unsurmountable. Like insurmountable. It can't be done.
Yeah.
He goes, but when you break it down in visual small steps, it's really not that hard. And he says, and it wasn't like when I went out for that 500-mile run, it wasn't like I just decided, I'm going to run 500 miles. He goes, I ran until I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. And it just happened to be 543 miles or whatever it was. Right. And it's kind of like your Forrest Gump. It's like Forrest Gump, right?
That's
but now think about that. That is a really, really great, valuable lesson, right? Now, obviously he's an extraordinary person. Okay.
Yeah.
But I had somebody, I have a friend whose wife does ultra marathons. She runs 50 and 100-mile runs. Okay. And I asked her, I said, like, how do you run 100 miles? She said, if you can run a mile, you can run 5 miles. If you can run 5 miles, you can run 25 miles. If you can run 25, you can run 50. And if you can run 50, you can run 100. Believe me. And I thought, you're right. It's just a matter of mindset, right? And so where I'm going with this, Mike, is that people complicate success. And people always ask me, like, what has been the secret for your success? And my success, like, I'm surrounded up here in Tahoe. I live in a really very odd place. I'm surrounded by billionaires, right? I'm in this little area called Incline Village, which is, there's just all these billionaires, and they're not all technology billionaires. I mean, I do have Larry Ellison's a neighbor, the CEO of Oracle. I've got Michael Milton, who's a financier. He lives across the street from me. A couple houses down, I got David Duffield, who is the CEO of PeopleSoft. He sold that to Oracle, but then he started Workday. You've probably seen Workday on TV.
Yep.
And then I'm surrounded by these billionaires, and I've gotten to know a lot of them, and they're really pretty normal, right? And they're the other thing they are, and this is interesting, is you have this mindset of like, what is somebody that's worth $70 billion like? Believe it or not, they're pretty normal. And the other thing that makes them that most people would be surprised at is they really, really are eager to share and help you. Like every one of these people I've met is like, hey, if you ever need any advice or you ever, want bounce something off somebody, I'm more, just call me, and
So,
or drinking and having a glass of wine with them, or at a dinner party or something like that.
yep.
You get to know these people, and they're just like like wells of great knowledge and information, and they really enjoy business, and they really enjoy helping other people. I think a lot of times these guys get pinned down, or these men and women get pinned down that are really super successful, and people think everybody's like Steve Jobs. They're known for being like, maybe they're just callous, they're jerks. It's exactly the opposite of that. My experience has been exactly the opposite of that. They're giving. All the philanthropy around here is all they give, like all the schools, the parks, the trails. It's all been built by these wealthy people giving back to their communities. And but my point is that I think that most people need to understand that success is and when people ask me that, it's like, give us the secret of your success. I said, well, 30 years is probably one of them. I've been doing this 30 years. And, in 30 years, you get good at something if you do it for 30 years. I mean, think about just in your own life that something like, I've been a snow skier my whole life, and people are like, man, you're a really good snow skier. It's like, well, I've been doing it for 50 years. I should be pretty good, And so business is the same way. And so instead of taking the approach of what's the one secret, right?
Yeah.
It's not, there's no one secret. It's a conglomeration of lots and lots of little things that you do every single day. Being consistent, controlling the way you think is really critical, right? So
I want to dig into that later with you. I definitely want to dig into that.
Like a guy like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Does he have doubts? He probably does, but the way he offsets those doubts is with preparation. Right. So as an example, like I'm a guitar player and I have a show on Saturday, private retirement. It's a private retirement party for about 500 people. And you better believe I get nervous. I'm going to go on stage and play for 4 hours, but you know how you offset that stage fright and the nervousness and all that? It's just preparation. Like for me, it just really boils down to knowing what I'm doing, and the way you do that is you consistently, and I mean, I read a study about a year and a half ago that the people that are the best at whatever they do, whether they're athletes or business people, whatever that is, right? It's not that they work 12 hours a day at something. It's that they do something to help them toward their goal every single day. It's not like, oh, I practice or I work at this 12 hours every day. No, it's that I do something to move the direction of my goals every single day.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense. That's that's in a very real way. I have this group called the Kick-Ass Crew, and part of what I've been bringing them through for the past month since I launched that is that mindset of starting to celebrate the consistency and doing something consistent. Even this morning when we were touching base, I was like, giving some accolades to a couple individuals who they, for almost from the beginning, have just said, hold me accountable to this. And it's been the same thing. And it's been, they were failing at first on it, and we had to adjust some mindset and some scheduling things. But then since they've been just doing it every day, and I'm like, that's going to move your business forward so far, because number one, there's, you do the right activities in your business and it's going to pay rewards. number two, learning the discipline to be disciplined
Mhm.
is invaluable.
Well, can I give you a little kind of nugget of wisdom on that? And it's something
Hell
that
yes.
that I'll give you and it was something I just kind of bumped into, right?
Okay.
Because I didn't really think about this a lot. I mean, I don't really think about a lot of the things that happen until somebody asks, or that that have led to things that have gone right in my career. But I'll give you an example. So sorry, my screen's shaking. My desk in here, it's literally like this old like uh steel mill table, and it's wobbly. So I'm trying not to lean my arms against it too much. But anyway, so I have a friend of mine that said, "Hey, would you teach me how to work out?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I took him to the gym. First thing he was like, "Well, this isn't very complicated at all." I'm like, "It isn't really." And really, you don't need to be in the gym more than 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, as long as you do it consistently and it's something you do five days a week, 6 days a week, it doesn't, it's like not something you got to go do for 2 hours. Matter of fact, that's counterproductive. But here's what he asked me. Like 3 or 4 months later, he called me and said, "Hey, I need some advice." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "When you get up in the morning and you don't feel like going to the gym, how do you overcome that?" And I said, "That never happens." And he goes, "Wait a minute. What do you mean it never happens?" I go, "It never happens." And he goes, "Why not?" And I go, "Because it's not a decision I make every day." He goes, "It isn't?" I go, "No, it's a decision I made like 25 years ago." So 25 years ago, I made a decision to be, take care of my health, to exercise every single day, make a habit out of it. That was a decision I made 25 years ago. So when I get up in the morning, I don't make that decision. That was done. That was a decision I made a long time ago, right? And people have a
Powerful.
fear of commit. People have a fear of commitment, and I'll tell you right now that commitment is really where all of the things that you want in your life, that's where they reside. Love, right?
Hmm.
Happiness. Like happiness is a commitment. It's not a thing. It's not a goal, right? Happiness is something you live every single day. And moving toward happiness encompasses lots of things. In fact, a lot of things you don't like. As an example, you know, if let's say you have a bad knee, right?
Okay.
And you're like, I can't do what I want to do. I need to rehab my knee. Well, rehab is a commitment. That's something that you work toward every single day. It's not something that that you just do once and it's over with, right? But you see where, oh, but if I could rehab my knee and then I could go back to the activities that I really enjoy in life, that I would start to enjoy my life better, and it's greater and greater joy leads to real overall happiness.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the best analogy for it, but my point is that commitments, they 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 are things that you do like for life.
Hmm.
You don't get married. I don't think anybody probably gets married thinking, well, I'll try this out for a year and see what happens. No, you stand before your friends in the universe and whatever God, and you make a commitment to the person to be there forever for them. Doesn't always work out, and I'm not. Look, I've been through a divorce. I know what that's like. But my point is that commitments, there's so much fruit to be born out of commitment, and when you make commitments, then you start to reach what you're looking for. Whereas a
Hmm.
lack of commitment is it's like a dog chasing their tail. A lack of commitment gets you nowhere. So
So,
and it's fun.
so how do you handle a broken commitment? Like, say for people, and what I would say is, the easiest part of an overnight success is the first 10 years, type thing. And you, at this, I mean, you are just layers upon layers upon layers of discipline that you've built for yourself.
Hmm.
For somebody watching this that has, kind of like Lombardi talked about, the issue with breaking a promise is you start to, learn that that's acceptable. And so for someone who's in that rut where they are desiring it, in, not just like, oh, I want it but I don't, but where they're like, all right, I am ready to fucking reset my life and let's go. what would that
Mhm.
piece of advice you would give to them to help, like in bowling, kind of have the gutter lane, keep keep them out of the gutter and give them the highest chance of success?
Well, a couple things. Number one is every day is every day is an opportunity for redemption, right? And the very first thing that I think
It's
everybody should
beautiful.
do is the person that the person that you need to look toward for forgiveness first is always yourself. Okay. And here's why: the world is lined up against you, right? People,
Yeah.
I see, not everybody, certainly. And I tell you what, I've found that most people are looking for reason to be happy and to be friendly,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And they're also, and especially right now, people are hair triggered to be angry, right?
Yeah.
But if you realize that and you give somebody an opportunity to be friendly and happy around you, they'll take it. Okay. So you should do that for yourself first, because there's plenty of people in the world ready to kick you. You should never do it yourself. Get out of that line. Get out of the kick you in the teeth line. You don't need to do it. There's plenty of people that are going to do that for you. Okay?
Yep.
Learn to learn to forgive yourself and really forgive yourself. Spend time on yourself and find the good qualities in yourself and look to those qualities. Look to be better at the things that you're not good at. But more importantly, be forgiving, right? I see that the thing I see in people that are broken the most is a lack of self-forgiveness, typically,
Mm,
right? And the reason is because they think if I'm harder on myself, I won't make the same mistakes. It's actually quite the opposite,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is what you do is you create a cycle of failure, right? Because you expect it. I don't deserve to be successful, right? Because I'm not worthy,
Yep.
right?
It's reinforcing the negative versus
it is,
focusing on the
it is,
positive.
and you got to start to cultivate a culture within yourself of love for yourself first. And I know that sounds a little odd, and I know it sounds like it sounds selfish, but I'm telling you right now, you can't give what you don't have,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So if you don't have self love, you can't have love for others, not real love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what you will find is that not only you punish yourself, then you will punish the people around you, right? So you got it. So you get what you do. It's like a chalkboard cluttered with crap that doesn't mean anything. Is if your life is in that place, erase that shit. Right? First step,
Which
erase it.
now
No, and by the way,
I felt somebody
nobody cares.
watching this going, but how can I erase it? And we're the only ones who have the power to do that because we
But
can
by the
forgive
way,
ourselves.
here's the thing. There's there's uh, there's a book out there called "F Up Your Life," right?
Okay.
And some of the stages of it are in doing that is you gotta let go of the past. The past doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't. The real winners in life. Now, if you just let's take a completely amoral kind of viewpoint. This is going to sound a little bit strange, but I read a book a long time ago, and I'm trying to think the name of it. It's like I'll have to look it up. It's a science book, right? It's a book
Okay.
about winners and quote unquote losers. But
Okay.
it's not about like the judgment of a loser or a winner, right? It's just who gets results and who doesn't.
Ah,
And
okay.
what they found very consistently is that people that win consistently
Yep.
look forward. People that lose consistently look backward a lot, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So winners don't they in fact the best winners, and I mean people like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, and we can judge those guys based on some of their decisions and selfishness or their actions I'm just talking about purely
They're
about
human.
results, right? They are human, they make mistakes. But those guys don't even have a rear view mirror, right? They don't even own a rear view mirror. I'll give you a quick story. A
That's
perfect
so
example is
powerful.
Jack Nicklaus, the golfer Jack Nicklaus. They were doing an interview with him about 15 years ago, And they asked him, they said, Jack, what do you do when you're in contention to win a major tournament on a Sunday and you miss a 3 or 4 foot putt? And he said, well, if I was in a major tournament on contention to win on a Sunday, I've never missed a 3 or 4 foot putt. And then the reporters gave him like 8 or 9 examples of 3 or 4 foot putts he missed on Sunday in major tournaments. And he argued with them and said, that I didn't miss that putt. What are you talking about? I made that putt. I didn't miss that putt. And I know that sounds crazy. He did actually miss the putts. But you know what he did when he missed the putt? He immediately forgot about it. He put it out of his mind. It didn't happen, right? But what do we all do? We're so fearful of I'm gonna choke when it matters the most.
Yeah.
Right. And the real winners over time, this doesn't happen overnight. Over time, they begin to live in the present and look to the future. Live in the present, look to the future. Don't spend any time with guess what? Your victories yesterday. Absolutely, we should celebrate the victories and move on and look for new fertile ground to win again, right? But the real winners live in the present, right? And I've always said one of the things, especially when you have a real tricky or dicey problem, is to get extremely present and process oriented. Get away from results and think about process. One foot in front of the other. That 500-mile run we were talking about.
Okay.
You run 500 miles one step at a time, and you solve problems one action at a time. Okay. So when you start to get process oriented in your life and stop worrying so much about results, but doing the things that get you the results, doing the activities and things in your life and in your business that get you results, you start to find better results. Because instead of worrying about, oh gosh, I'm going to come up short, or whatever it is that's going through your mind, you're cluttering your mind with things that don't actually take you where you want to go, and you stop with that and start wrapping yourself into the process, right? It's like I was just saying with golfers. Golfers have a funny thing. They all use mental coaches, and the thing the mental coaches have them do is if you watch these guys, they have exactly the same routine over every single shot. They absolutely walk into the shot. They do every single thing they do is exactly the same every single shot. And it's because they want them staying in the present. They want them process oriented. They don't want them worrying about where the ball is going to go or any of that. They're going to do everything the same way. And if you do, the likelihood of the shot being a good one's much higher than if you approach it differently every single time. Right.
And that takes, there's humility. There's humility required in that. Of our ego would want to say, flare up and be like, well, I'm good enough. I can do this a different way. I can, I don't need to follow the discipline of that. And I'm hearing disciplined humility is required of them.
Yeah, well, and a proper focus, right? And the thing is, the discipline's a funny thing. People tend to think of discipline like I got to fight through the pain and all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay, yeah.
That's not entirely true, and I'll give you an example. Conditioning helps you with that, right? And when you consistently do the same things all the time, you begin to get conditioned. Now think about it in terms of this. Let's go back to the running analogy.
Okay.
If you decide I'm going to start running, well, it sucks, right? You go out and you say I'm going to run a mile, right? And you go out and run a mile and it's awful, right? And then what you want to work toward is like I'm going to work up to 5 miles. I eventually want to start running 5 miles 3 days a week or whatever it is, right? Well, what happens over time is you begin to get conditioned. Yeah. You get conditioned both physically and mentally, because guess what? The pain isn't any matter of fact. Running 5 miles is worse than running 1 mile. But for some reason, when you start running 1 mile, feels terrible. But then eventually you start running 5 miles, you're like, it's not that bad. Well, You know why? Because now I'll give you. I know I keep talking in analogies, Mike, and I'll apologize. But
don't apologize for that. Don't apologize for analogies like that. I think that way, and I think a lot of people. That's how they learn. you
Yeah.
know?
So when I was younger, when I was in the military, I boxed. Right, I was a boxer,
Oh, I would not
and
want to go up against you in a ring.
you should have seen some of the guys I fought. So they were big dudes. But one of the things that you learn, like when you're new, is
Okay.
getting hit in the face or in the body. It doesn't feel good, right? But guess what? It is an absolute part of the deal. Okay, like you're not going to avoid that. Okay, it's going to happen. And so what happens at first is your expectations are off, right? Like you're like, I'm going to go clobber that guy. What you're not expecting is he's trying to do the same to you. Okay. Right. And you get, and your adrenaline kicks in and you get, and it's exhausting. Right. But what happens over time is you start realizing like, you're going to get hit. It's really just a matter of resetting your expectation. Like, okay, I'm going to get hit. I just want to make sure that's not a knockout blow. So I want to be defensive and offensive at the same time. And then what happens is you begin to actually relax, right? So and relaxing allows your body to not over exhaust itself with the adrenaline and then just being so tense, and that conserves the energy, right?
Okay.
So it's conditioning, right? Mentally, you're conditioning yourself because you're like, okay, I'm going to get hit, right? And if I get hit, knocked down, I got to get up, right? And you set your expectations like, okay, this isn't a one-way road here. This is a two-way street, right?
Yeah.
And then as you're mentally conditioning yourself better, you become physically conditioned so that your body gets into better shape, your mind gets into better shape, and then sets its expectations better. And it's like Mike Tyson used to say something. I love this. Mike Tyson said, "Everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face," right? And it's true. So here's the thing. I want to say this: life is a contact sport. Okay, you're going to get hit in the face. It's not going to be. It's not perfect. It's ups and downs. And going into it knowing I'm expecting some things are going to go wrong. Don't overreact. In the military, there's a saying we all have, and that's stay calm and return fire. Okay. And right. And stay calm and return fire. Like expect that you're going to get hit and you're going to get knocked down. Getting knocked down is not failure. Getting up is the opposite of failure. Get up, get moving back, stay on track, be consistent with your efforts, because you can't control everything that happens, but you can control how you react to it. You can control your own actions. You can control your mind, and the more you begin to work on controlling the way you think, don't let the demons in. Or if you do, learn tricks to not emotionally become too wrapped up in it with your reaction, right? Don't allow your emotions to overwhelm you. Just realize it's temporary, right? You're not gonna, it's just, again, it's Tom Brady. You watch the football games. It's not like he goes out there and makes 10 touchdowns in a row and it's perfect. And no, there's setbacks. The important part is stay to the plan, stay consistent, keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. That's how you win in life. And that's how you win in business.
Ooh, that is powerful. That is powerful. And man, woo. All right. So many good things there. Let's back up for one quick second, because for those that are watching or listening that don't know you, they're probably like, holy shit, who the fuck is this dude dropping all, like, just coming out, just gunning, with knowledge and wisdom. Not even just knowledge, wisdom, because wisdom is like you've lived it and you're speaking from experience. And so from that standpoint, I guess maybe give a little bit of context of who you are today, like from a business standpoint and that sort of thing, and then we'll drop back to kind of your origin, origin story.
Yeah. So I'm I'm involved in our businesses that we share share in on the insurance side of things. We're an insurance marketing organization, one of the largest in the United States. Of course, didn't start out that way. We started from humble beginnings, just a couple people, and we grew it from there. We had a vision, we had a plan. We think we had, kind of a better way to do things than a lot of the way things were done in the past. By the way, that wasn't my vision. I mean, my origins, I learned about teamwork fairly early in life, and how you live and die by the team. And I am 1000% behind that. Everything I've done in let's put it like this.
Yeah.
This is really important. Everything good in my life has come because of other people and the choices I've made with picking to be around and surround myself with the right people. And everything bad in my life, and almost everything bad in my life, has been exactly the opposite, choosing the wrong people. I had somebody say to me yesterday, they said, you're probably your greatest quality as a person, your most obvious quality is loyalty. And it definitely is, right? That anything in excess is bad, right?
Okay.
So I've been loyal to the wrong people in my life at times. And, it took me a long time to figure out, like, I got to be careful who I allow in my orb, right? In my life.
Yeah.
Because you're going to, and by the way, you do not have to surround yourself with billionaires to be successful.
Oh, we're going to circle back though. We're going to circle back to your billionaire neighbors.
All right. Now it's good to have those people in your life, and you want to learn from those people, but I'm telling you that you got to keep at least an arm length. There's a saying I like, and that is, you got to stay away from unhappy and unlucky people, right? Because it rubs off, right? It's like the mental coronavirus. You don't realize what it's doing to you until it's too late. And it's really hard to do, especially for somebody like me who's just like, I'm the kind of guy you call up and you say, boy, I really made a mistake. I killed somebody. I'm the guy that says, I know exactly where to bury the body. Right. But but too much of that's not good. So what I've had to do, Mike, is I've had to allow, this is the tricky part, especially somebody like me who's viciously independent, is to be vulnerable and listen to and allow people around me to help me navigate things that I don't see. Because here's what I see. I don't see all that back there. Right.
Yep.
So I look to surround myself with people who help me with my peripheral vision and behind me, right?
Okay.
It's hard to do with a personality like me. So I've learned.
What led you? Yeah. What led you to that? Because I would imagine, like, I tend to be a little more trusting on the front end with people. My wife though is a lot more guarded. And over the years, I've learned to be a little more guarded, and she's learned to be a little more open. So for someone operating on your level, was there pain that you lived through of not opening for people, or was it you opened too much?
Yeah, let me put it like this. Again, everything in my life that's been great has happened because I trusted the right people. And everything that's gone wrong in my life is because I trusted the wrong people. Here's the problem I have is I'm like you. I trust people. And you know what? I'm going to keep doing it because I just said everything that's good that's happened is because I trust the right people. The trick is making sure you keep the wrong ones out and the right ones in. And for me, that requires what I just said. Life's a team sport. It's a contact sport, and it's a team sport. Life is not a individual sport. So you got to have people around you that have your back and that can help navigate you. And the problem I always had, Mike, was that when my wife would say to me, for instance, she's somebody I trust implicitly. Yeah. She would say to me, that person's bad news. And my feeling was, but you just don't know him. What I didn't realize, here's what I didn't realize. I'd be like, well, it's just because you don't know him or her, right? And what I didn't realize is that's exactly why she's qualified to make that observation.
She hasn't been blinded.
I'm subjective. She's objective. You follow me?
Yeah, I do.
this is where I'm going with this, is right, is you've got to build a team of people around you in your life that are people that it's really hard for somebody like me to be vulnerable and to rely on other people to do that. But I'll tell you what's happened is I have a lot less bumps in the road nowadays than I used to, because I now I really rely on that for the team.
Yep.
My team's not a giant team, right? But it's people.
Well, yeah.
It's people
Is
that
it
aren't even,
like your core? Would you say, as far as at least business wise at this point, with Brandon and Casey, your business partners, or do you have different teams for different areas of your life to hold accountable, or what does that look like?
I've probably got about a dozen people in my life that besides just being friends and people I love, fill a role in my life that I would go to for certain things. I mean, these are all friends or family, friends and or family. I all look at them all the same, kind of.
Yeah.
And I will go to some of them for different things. Sometimes I've probably gone to all of them on all of the things in my life at different stages based on advice I need or help I need to see clearly. Most of the time, honestly, I used to do this with my daughter. My daughter used to come to me for advice. She still does. And she's 35. She's a psychologist. And she'll call me up, even to this day. She'll say, I need your advice. And I'll listen to her and I'll say, well, what do you think? And she'll tell me, and I'm like, that's exactly what I would tell you to do. And she's like, I know you were going to say that, because a lot of times what we do is we want an easy way out. Like, we're looking, okay, I know the answer. I don't like the answer. So I'm hoping that somebody will give me another way out. And you realize, no, there's no way out. I'm going to have to confront this situation. I'm going to have to deal with it, and I already know what to do, but where I have blinders sometimes is when it comes to my heart, when it comes to people, and I just don't see them for what they really are. I see them for what I want them to be. Right.
Yes. Which that is, I would say, in other areas of your life, and even in the area of relationships, that's what is probably led to much of your success, that ability to see the potential and then people rise to it. Yet there's that flip side of when we can just become, I would say, I don't want to talk shit about you. I just would say, like, it could be a form of hubris of like, oh yeah, that might be there, but I got this. Like, have you ever dealt with that?
Hey guys, Michael Anthony here, and I have a question for you. Are you out of work or unhappy with your career? Are you tired of your boss giving you crappy raises? How about not being able to provide the life you want for you or your loved ones? Do you earn great money, but you're just tired of being someone else's bitch? If so, I invite you to visit workwithsymmetry.com/change to learn about the career that forever transformed the trajectory of my life. And it could change yours too. Like I said, this career isn't for everyone, but if you're unhappy where you're at, I encourage you to go to workwithsymmetry.com/change and take control of your life.
Awesome. All right. So we had that little technical glitch, and now the audio's back. We were talking about as far as trusting people and how that can be difficult.
Yeah. So I think the trick is to be here's what I was going to tell you, and this was you were asking about hubris and so forth. So we all have some level of hubris, and we all have. I like to think of myself as not being too big of an egotistical person, and I'm pretty comfortable saying I don't have a giant ego. I was a CEO for a long time, never liked it. I frankly don't like the attention. I don't like being the boss, those kinds of things. So I don't have a runaway ego. But what I will tell you, probably one of my biggest faults is that I have a tendency to think that I can overcome other people's limitations. Right? Like, okay, I see this person, they're flawed in a certain way. I'll just do the extra work to make up for what they lack or whatever. And that is just as bad as just about anything else you can do. And the reason is because you do two things when that happens. You rob that person of their ability to grow as a person by not demanding better of them, right? And number two, you have effectively transferred their limitation to yourself, and it's not your job to overcome somebody else's limitations. It's their job. It's like, you know what it's like, Mike? It's like doing your kids' homework for them. It doesn't work out.
It's the easy answer in the moment, though. As far as if your kids, throwing a, attitude and whatever, I don't know how to do this and blah, blah. It's like, okay, 2 + 2 is 4, blah, blah, blah. But it hurts them long term. So yeah, what have you done to kind of, is just being aware of that savior complex enough for you to adjust and adapt, or do you have some methodologies of how you approach that now?
Well, yeah. The first question is, what is it about me that feels like I need to be a hero? Right? Ooh. Like, that's a pretty good question to ask yourself, right? Like what, like, is it, important to my self-worth? Is my self-esteem? Like, what is it? Like, what is this hero complex thing? That was the first thing I had to accomplish, was to overcome that. Whatever deficiency was running in me, that was the problem, right? And I did that work. I personally did it with a therapist, where the therapist. What we found was that a lot of my self-esteem and self-worth was wrapped up in and value that I saw in myself was wrapped up in mastery, right?
Meaning
mastery of
becoming excellent at a particular thing and then drawing worth from that.
Yep.
Okay.
That was a big one. And then another one was in saving people, right? It was like, what happened? And here's where that was rooted. I'm not trying to get too deep on you. I'm just giving you my
I love this.
Is it really had a lot to do with the way I grew up, right?
Okay.
I don't have any animus towards my parents for this. It's just what happened. My brother was very sick as a kid, right? He's 8 years older than me, and he was in the hospital virtually almost weekly. He had a problem with his brain. He's normal, fairly normal now. He has severe epilepsy.
Oh, wow.
But prior to that, they couldn't figure out what was going on. So he was very, very sick. He was 8 years older than me. Then they had an infant daughter, my sister, die, right?
Wow.
And then
how old were you when that happened?
That was 4 years before I was born, right?
Okay.
And so by the time I came along, they were worn out, right? They were worn out. And I've had these discussions with my dad. I'm like, I wanted to understand myself better, right? Yeah. And my dad said, well, when you were born, you completely, like, you played by yourself. You never cried. You were completely happy in your playpen by yourself. Or when you weren't in the playpen, you were outside the playpen, you were completely autonomous. Like, you didn't need a lot of time and attention. And we didn't have it in us to give it to you. So it worked out, right? Yeah. Well,
wow.
Whatever happened is, I grew up very independent. And so, my self-worth was wrapped up in doing things for other people, rescuing other people, overcoming other people, other people's things. And I grew out of that a lot. The military taught me a lot getting out of that. Number one, because I could barely get myself through some of the training I went through, more or less,
Well, and you were not, like, what did you do in the military? Where, so that people have an idea of, when you say you could barely get yourself through, like, what was
special forces. So, it's such a difficult training program to get through that, you have to rely on other people. You actually have to rely on each other to get through that, right? That was very different for me. I played individual sports. I did play individual sports as a kid, but it just didn't. I probably was a little bit of a prima donna that way. But there's no room for prima donnas in the military special forces. There just
Special
isn't, right?
ops.
In fact, the training is built specifically to run those people out.
Wow.
Because those kinds of people get other people killed, right?
Yeah.
It's not a glory's all mine type of thing. It's a we got to work as a team just to survive the missions, right? So that kind of wrung some of that out of me. But then when I got out of there and I went back to normal civilian type of life, I went back to my old ways, and I didn't even realize it. So.
And what was it that prompted you to join the military? Was it where you, a lot of the time people run either to something or from something. So were you running from or running to, or?
Yeah, for me, it was, I grew up in a little farm town in Central California. And I mean, when I say Central California, it's flat. It looks like Kansas. Okay.
Wow.
We literally had tumbleweeds rolling down the streets in my town. Right. It was hot.
That's awesome.
Hot and dry. Right. Like it was something out of a Western.
Okay.
And you just wanted the hell out of there, man. It was you came from. It's not somewhere you were lived.
Okay. Okay.
And so I wanted out of there. It was a dead end. There was just so I wanted out of there. It was really where I grew up. I was a 5-generation railroad family. My family literally built and worked on the railroads of California from the 1800s. So
Okay.
So it was either join the railroad, go to work for the railroad, which my dad did not want me to do, or go to college. Wasn't even, I mean, no, I didn't even think about going to college because nobody went to college in my family. It wasn't even a discussion.
Wow.
And my family was, I moved out of my house when I was 16 years old. My mom went to work. She went to Hawaii for work for 3 months one time, and I lived with my mom. And I couldn't live alone at 16 years
16.
old, so she sent me to live with my grandmother. So that was just even a higher level of independence. My grandma let me do anything I want, right? She was just the sweetest woman to this day, probably the sweetest human being I've ever known. And
Wow.
she had no idea the troublemaking things I was involved in and all that. So I did whatever I wanted, and I managed to get myself through school and all that. But I needed a clean break. So I joined the military. And then when I got out of the military, I came back and figured out what I wanted to do, and then I went in insurance sales. And it was it was purely to make money.
Okay, I'm like, I love that you were like, I figured out what I wanted to do, and it's like, normally people, I wanted to, become an astronaut, I want to, start a business, or I want to, cook pizzas, or a chef, and you're like, so I went into insurance sales. So unpack that.
You're right. So for me, it was all about, I needed to make money. I was in a place in my mind where first of all, I was dating a woman 13 years older than me.
Okay.
And she was in her mid 30s, and she made great money. And I was like, I was making nothing. Like I was making $12 an hour or something. Right.
Okay.
And I was like, I got to make some money. So I tried to get jobs at different places. Nobody would hire me without a college degree, what I wanted to do. Sales was going to definitely be what I wanted to do. And then I just happened to have a friend that was somebody they were trying to recruit to insurance, and he gave me the number of the recruiter. I called the recruiter, and I was off to the races. I started selling insurance.
Okay. All right. And to clarify for context, like you were making $12 an hour and you said you wanted to make money. For you at that point in time, what would have been a good amount? Like, was it 20,000? Was it 50,000? Was it, 100,000? Or were you like, I'm going to be a multimillionaire, in the next 5 years type thing? Like, what was your drive?
Well, there's a few things to unpack there. So first, for me, I think I was probably making $40,000 my first year in insurance.
Okay.
And I was doing pretty good. I think I was 21 years old. Right.
Wow.
And I probably made about that amount of money for 2 years. And then I was single again. I split up with the girl I was dating.
Okay.
I was single. My earning earnings went down because then I was chasing girls instead of trying to sell insurance.
Your focus,
you know,
focus went everywhere.
Yes. Yep. And then I met my first wife, and I was immediately like, I want a family, and she already had my daughter, who I've adopted. My daughter's my adopted daughter, but I mean, she was, you know, a little girl, and she never knew her biological dad. So I was dad, and I'm still dad.
Well, let me just pause for a second and cheers that, because for myself, my dad is my adopted father. And, you know, people will get confused, and he's passed away a few years ago. To me, like, that's my dad. Like, he's my fucking dad. Like, you can't be more of my father. So I cheers that, and I salute that in choosing to make that impact.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about adopting a child and having a child adopted, and this is the take, call it a spin, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, my daughter and I choose to look at it in a much more powerful way, and that is unusual when you have kids to be able to actually choose that person, right? Like, I chose her and she chose me. Yeah. And that has made actually for a much tighter bond in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so when I met my first wife, and she had Jenna, I was like, I want a family. I want you guys. And we were off to the races. And so my earnings went way up because I went to work. You know, I really buckled down and really went to work. And I was making probably within a year, I was probably making $120,000 a year. I bought a house. As a matter of fact, we bought a house. We got married in June, and we bought a house in August. And I literally went to work to get the down payment. I think I put together about a $30,000 down payment in 8 weeks.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, yeah, I actually have never made a plug on the show for, you know, what one of our businesses are, but the ads that play on this, if you are looking for money, let this speak to you about what's possible, and check it out, see if you're interested, because it for the right people, man, this industry transforms lives and delivers meaningful work. So
yeah, and not only did I get, I mean, I was, you know, a bit naive. I didn't even realize what I was doing. But first thing I did was, not only did I put the down payment together, I probably eliminated I know I paid our cars off and all our credit cards. So we bought a house. I thought in order to qualify for the loan in the house, we couldn't have any other debt. What was funny, I had to write letters explaining why I paid the cars off and the credit cards and all that. Like, they looked at it like, and where did you get the money? And I had to explain it all, you know? And,
you're like, I worked, I busted my tail. That's what I did.
That's right. So, I just busted my butt for a couple of months, but I never looked back. And so then I started my business about a year after that, my own independent insurance business. So about a year after that.
And about how old are you at this point?
I was right around 25.
Okay. Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So 25, you've been special ops. you're out, you know, you dated this, 30-some-year-old woman. Then you're, chasing some tail. Then you find, a woman you want to settle down with who has a daughter. You bust your ass. You save up a, down payment and pay off a bunch of credit card. And then you go and you are starting your own business by the age of 25.
Yep. So I got married. I got married, had a kid. I say had a kid. It was an instant kid, right? Got married, had a kid, bought a house, and started my business all in the same year. So it was a lot, but I will tell you, I was motivated. I wanted a family. I was focused on providing for the family. It really wasn't about me at all at that point. It was about, this was my little family, it's this little family that's starting from scratch. And we collectively all busted our ass.
So, all right. So this was a question that actually someone submitted that which ties in beautifully right here, where, kind of a young entrepreneur trying to balance, family, business, self-care, all of that sort of thing. And what would you say, like, from either how you handled it, in a good way, or lessons you've pulled from that have stuck with you for the rest of your life on attempting to juggle or balance, or whatever the word, you use on that?
Here's the way that I've always kind of looked at it, right? Is a little bit of an underdog. I've always considered myself a little bit of an underdog. That's probably me feeling or thinking about it from that perspective, and probably a lot less reality. But here's the way I looked at it.
Well, hold up though. I want to kind of challenge that a little bit though, because I mean, you said, view yourself as an underdog, came from fifth generation railroad workers, middle of nowhere. No one had gone to college, or I don't judge worth in what's in someone's worth of who they are by what they accomplish. And still achieving things of substance or of significance is a different manner that isn't talking about the worth of a soul of a human or whatever. And from that standpoint, you're the first one in your family to break from those generational patterns and to do something way. So I mean, you are an underdog, in a very real sense.
I don't, here's the thing. I don't want to come off as like that. I mean, I have lots of advantages. Well, we live in America, greatest country on the planet. As messed up as it is, it's still the greatest country on the planet.
Yeah.
I'm a man. I'm a male, right?
Yep.
That's an advantage in America. In America, okay. I'm Caucasian. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, but
that's all good.
So I mean, these are advantages, right? These are advantages. So I don't want to give anybody like one thing you'll never get out of me: self-pity. When I say an underdog, like I didn't understand the advantages that I just said, like till very much later in my life, right? Yep. So and they are advantages. I don't want to, but from a standpoint of where I came from and how I viewed my life, I've always considered myself like an underdog to the point of like, okay, and here's how I view this. If you're smarter than me, I'll just outwork you. If you outwork me, I'll find a way to outsmart you, right? And and one thing about me is I'm very tenacious. So I've learned that tenacity is tough to beat. Like, it's like again, and I'm sure there are people that are smarter and more and harder working than me. It's just a recipe that I found that works really well. And the other thing too is that I don't want to give anybody the impression like I was an overnight success, because I worked my butt off for probably 10 years. And when I say work my butt off, I mean I worked 80 to 100 hours a week for 7 or 8 years without vacations. I mean, literally never took a day off. We never took a vacation. We never did anything. And I actually had to do that because I was trying to figure out how to make my business work right. So I stepped on every landmine in the minefield, believe me. And so it was like riding the razor's edge for a long time. Then finally I was like, I understand what I'm doing. I know how to do it. And then I scaled it. But it took me a long time, like I'm probably like Colonel Sanders. It took him a long time to figure out the secret recipe.
Yeah.
For his chicken. I was that guy. Like, took me a long time to figure out the recipe. So it wasn't an overnight success. It was just a lot of it was just like in many ways, Mike, I had no other choice. Like I didn't have a plan B, And
so what though in you, because I esteem to get to the level where you are, and I believe in time I will. That said, when I say this, I'm not putting us on the same tier. And that being said, there's a lot of people will, when faced with that, the reality is you did have a choice. You had a choice and you chose the hard path. And I drive that way as well. And my wife does that. We lean into it. Have you identified anything for yourself? Because there's people listening and watching right now that may be like, man, I used to have that, or I've had it, I have it now, or I want to get it back. And is there anything on that? Because it's easy to say I didn't have a choice. Well, America, and I'll say America specifically, is filled with a lot of people who have that choice and choose to ignore the realities of their situation by binging Netflix and distracting with drugs or alcohol or whatever, versus taking that ownership over our life. And do you know what it is? Have you been able to identify what it is that fuels you to say I don't have a choice?
A couple things. One is you need to go revisit open a dictionary or go to your phone and look up the definition of decision.
Okay.
Right. It's to literally cut off all their options. Okay. A real decision. And so I think decisions are things that have the utmost gravity, and I don't think people realize that. Because if you think you're making a decision and you haven't cut all the other possibilities up, then you actually haven't made a decision. A decision is an extremely powerful thing, and when you decide, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Right. All the rest of the choices are gone. Okay.
Yes.
They're gone. Or you haven't committed and made a decision. So don't fool yourself into thinking you have. Okay. The other thing is I was watching an interesting program on Netflix last night, and it was about the mind, the brain, and they had they had one of the real masters in the world of meditation, right?
Okay.
He's a monk. And the reason he got into meditation was he had panic attacks as a young person, right? And his father was a meditator, and his father was like, "You need to." And by the way, I'm a meditator. I found meditation is an interesting thing. Meditation is going inward and embracing what you're afraid of. See, what a lot of people do is they go outward to avoid confronting their issues, right?
Yeah.
And what meditation is really about is going inward and embracing your limitations and facing them and literally embracing. Like in his case, it was his father said, "Listen, you need to start meditating and embrace your panic. Like instead of avoiding your panic, bring it in. Come on in, panic. We're in this together. Welcome." Yeah. Right? And what it does is it takes the power away from the thing you're afraid of. Yeah. Right? And so that's a perfect example of, and I know I've talked to you about this before. The things you're most afraid of in life, and listen, I've done it, and it's a very powerful thing to face your fears. Yeah. Because what happens when you do, it's liberating, right? I'm not. And it's like I'll give you an example. So, and I'll go back to the boxing analogy. Muhammad Ali knew he couldn't beat a couple of guys toe to toe. There's no way he could beat the likes of George Foreman and so he did that rope-a-dope thing where he let like the fear is you can't. What his trainers would say is you can't let George Foreman hit you. He'll kill you, right? You can't let Ernie Shavers these guys these bigger, more powerful guys. You cannot let them. You can't go toe to toe with them. So what he did was he let them beat on him, right? Because running around and not getting hit, like that's not going to work. You're not going to win the fight doing that. So what Muhammad Ali did is he did the thing that he was the most afraid to do. And I'm going to let him hit me. I'm going to let him just beat on me. It's going to wear him out, and it's going to free me from the thing I'm afraid of. By the way, Sugar Ray Leonard did the same thing. in fights,
Oh,
where he just was
wow.
no way he could go toe to toe with more powerful fighters. And so what he did was he let him hit him for 2 minutes, and then he came on strong the last minute of a round, right? What I'm getting at here, if you're afraid of something, like as an example, my wife is terrified of audiences, of standing in front of the audience. So amazingly, I convinced her to join a band, right? So
That's right. That's
she's
right.
right. So she got up in front of audiences and played the piano and sings. Still does it
Wow.
some. Right now, the thing she was most afraid of, I'm telling you, there's so much personal power that you gain by overcoming your fears, and you realize it ain't that bad, right? What's the worst? Think of the worst thing can happen, and you realize, well, that's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
And
Am I
once you start
dead?
to realize,
Like, did I lose
right?
a limb? Am I, like, have permanent brain damage? No.
I'm embarrassed,
Yeah.
whatever it is, big deal. Guess what? And the funny thing is this is what most people don't understand, or they don't really think about, is we're all afraid of the same thing,
Mm.
right? So get out and start exercising that, and go out and start overcoming some of those fears. If you're afraid of heights, try to get involved with something where you face that fear. If you're afraid of speaking in front of people, embrace it and and what happens is pretty soon you're like, this is no big deal at all. But what it does for your self-esteem is incredible.
Did you deal with like fear of heights at all? Have you ever been afraid of heights?
Oh, I'm terrified of heights.
Okay, and
But
yet
you were
jumping out of planes and like doing crazy, crazy shit. But you just trained yourself, that muscle.
Yeah, and what the whole point of doing that is what people misunderstand courage. They don't understand what courage is. Courage is action in the face of fear.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Crazy is a lack of fear. Okay? Like, crazy people don't have fear because they're crazy. Okay? And I don't mean like,
which can be dangerous.
Of course. But courage is action in the face of fear, right? So get up. Courage is not a you're not gifted courage. You learn courage, right? And in my life and in my business, what happens is, when everybody panics, it's a choice to not panic. It's a choice to stay calm. You can go back and look at it again. Like, I'll give you an example. I've had a few things happen where, I've seen people mortally wounded, right? Or close to mortally wounded. Okay. Saw a guy get an arm cut off one time. Okay.
Wow.
And people were screaming, and I ran over there and dealt with the situation. Right. And I stayed calm and ended up we saved the guy's life. Okay.
Wow.
And now I will tell you this, I was rattled for a while. Right. It was, like I didn't panic. I was very calm, took care of the situation. Then I went back and freaked out. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's something you learn.
I was just going to say, was that something, were you cognizant in the moment, or was it your training and your preparedness just kicked in to where you were like, I'm handling this shit, and then afterwards you were like, oh my Lord, like, what the fuck just happened? And like,
it was that.
Okay.
It was a very awful thing, right? It was a very awful situation. And by the way, it's irrational reactions to things is very normal, right? When something happens, most people, and I think it's very natural for most people to act like the way most people would. When something happens like that, people don't know what to do, right? Yeah. It's like I'm overwhelmed with a situation that seems horrible and awful. Okay, and I'll give you a real life example. I'll give you two real quick.
Okay.
So my first wife's grandmother was 95 years old, and she was in the hospital in really bad shape. And the doctor said, you guys need to say your goodbyes. And this is a real good story for how powerful how choices are, right?
Okay.
So the doctor said, say your piece. Her heart's in such bad shape that she's not going to make it.
Wow.
So I went in there, and now the family didn't know what to do.
Okay.
Nana's going to die, right? So when I went in there and I sat next to her bed and I asked her, and she came to live with us after this. Okay. So I went in there and I said, Ellen, how are you doing? And she's like, she was terrified, And I said, are you at peace with dying? And she's like, no. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. She goes, really? And I go, unless you're ready to go, then you're not going to go. She said, okay. And I said, but you got to fight. I need you to give it your best. Went out, grabbed the doctor and said, she ain't ready to go. And he's like, well, there's only so much we can do. I go, well, then you need to do everything you can do. Mike, she lived another 8 years.
Wow.
She died at 103. And you know why? Because she decided not to die. Right?
That's powerful.
That, right? They had to do surgery, and we had a whole plan around all that, and it was dicey. But she lived another 8 years. Okay.
And so how many of us wake up and live in the land of indecision on not deciding to live? And we just, kind of carry on in our lives. Like, you're talking literal life or death, but I'm talking about from a practical of something we can apply. Like it was real for her. And she goes, I'm choosing to live.
Yeah.
And it pushed her forward. And how much more would our lives, from a fulfillment, from a realizing potential, from living what's inside here and making it reality, how much more would that be if we took the same seriousness that Nana did?
Yeah, and what we're talking about is we're talking about, like, anybody can do this, right? So when I came out and I talked to the doctor, and then I talked to the rest of the family, my wife's brother and sister-in-law and her Ellen's kids, because they were, she had kids that they were in their 70s at this point. And I said, all right, I just talked to the doctor. They're going to do surgery and all that. And I said, she doesn't want to die. And my brother-in-law said, well, that's not really our choice. And I go, bullshit. We all just decided you better get on board, because that's where the train's going. And the whole family, the entire energy of the room completely shifted from shock and awe to a plan for her to live, right? And by the way, she ended up back in the hospital at least a dozen times. She lived with us for like 4 years after that, but she ended up back in the hospital at least a dozen times with kind of the same, this is it. She's got, and we tell the doctors, figure out a way to get her out of here. And in some cases, it was 4 or 5 hours, and we were headed home. And the doctor's like, we don't have an explanation. She just did a turnaround, right? It was so mental. And by the way, I just went through this with Jerry, my wife's mother, right?
Okay.
We just flew down to Utah. She's got metastatic breast cancer, stage 4. And we went down there. Yeah, we went down there, and we had a family meeting, and she's in really bad shape. And I said, and we, everybody was talking doom and gloom, and what are we going to do, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, can I ask a question? And I asked her, I said, Marilyn, are you ready to die? And she said, no. And I go, well, then we all need to stop talking about her dying.
Yep.
She's not ready to die. I go,
yes.
You'll know when you're ready to die. I go, I've seen it because I've been there. And I said, this is not the time. And they go, all right. And I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. There's some things that need to happen. You need to get out of bed. We need to get you out. I went out and bought her a really nice outdoor patio set for her deck. I said, you need to be outdoors at least an hour every day in the sun, in the fresh air. You need to start watching and reading uplifting things. Throw that shit away right now about dealing with death. She's not dying, okay? And I'm telling you, Mike, God is my witness, her doctors are like, she's making a really big turnaround. Like she's in, like they're going away from, hospice oriented care to more maintenance oriented care. We're getting her in. We got her one of those walk-in baths. So she's taking a bath every day and getting, blood circulating. And so we've gone away from this. We've gone away from this mom's dying to let's get as much out of the rest of it that we can in a good And I'm telling you, everybody, the whole family, it's their whole mindset, the entire mood of everybody has shifted. Right. And the reason I'm telling you these stories is all of this. It'll go back to the way we started this. Brady said when he went in the Super Bowl, we believed in ourselves. Right. You see how important how you look at things. It's not, you have to change the way you look. And when you change the way you look, you change the way you approach and deal with it. Your actions change and you start moving toward what you want instead of what you're afraid of.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. And it reminds me of even, because there's some, I'm sure some Chief fans that are like, well, Mahomes believed. And it reminded me of this phrase that Tony Robbins says, where he's like, whoever has the most belief wins. And with sales, there's two people that have belief. And if you go in as a salesperson to the situation and without a sale, then you chose to let their belief become your belief, or vice versa, with that. And go ahead.
I'm telling you right now, I'll tell you right now, I would state it like this: belief turns into will to win, right? And I'm telling you that when you look at the greats at anything, generally they just have the greater will, right? It's like
and amnesia of the past to where if shit doesn't work out, like Gary Vee said, actually it was right when I made the decision to leave where I was and start my full entrepreneurial journey. And he was talking about, he was like, people are like, well, how are you so confident in yourself? And he goes, because I'm not going to lose. And someone was like, well, you're saying you never lose at anything? He was like, no, but what I'm saying is I have a different vision of my life and my timeline than you do. You may be looking right here and go, oh, you just lost on this. He goes, I don't give a shit about this because I'm looking out further and I see at the end, I win. So in between, whatever happens, that's just learning. It's the journey, but I'm going to fucking win.
Well, yeah, it goes back to boxing. Oh, I got hit. Well, you didn't get knocked out and you didn't lose the fight. You got hit. Like that's going to happen, right? Yeah. It's not about avoiding getting hit. It's about embracing the blows and keeping to the game plan and being committed to what you want. And I'm telling you, nobody's going to do for you what you want. You have to do that for yourself. And it's not rocket science and it's not that difficult. You just have to be committed to it and just stay the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. That's
and by
so
the way,
good.
Listen, look, I have self-doubt all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
but I brush it aside and get back to what, you don't get distracted by self-doubt. Embrace it. It's going to happen. I'm going to feel that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an important distinction because there are some people out there and whatever that will, and I'm not getting this vibe from you where they're like, nothing negative is ever going to happen and whatever. My approach is like in that situation with like grandmothers where it's like, look, my dad was supposed to, he had a fucked up life and, didn't take very good care of himself and what have you. But he was literally told by doctors, I want to say it was 12 years before he died that he had, or no, 7 years before he died, that he had less than like 2 months to live. And he basically just took the approach. He was like, fuck it, I'm not ready to go. And, and it's one of those where I go, look, if you're listening, if you're watching right now and you're like, well, yeah, but look, what about this? What about that? My take on that is, well, what's the benefit? Like, let's say let's say tomorrow, a doctor told me I only had 2 months to live. And let's say I only live 2 months. Okay. What's better use of my 2 months that I'm alive? Me waking up every day, fearing the death that's coming, living with regret, looking back and or me going, hell yeah, I got the gift of waking up today and I'm going to make the most of it. What's the most fulfilling? What's the most beneficial? Even if it ends
Yeah.
up being an extra month, an extra week, who gives a shit? It's the
Mhm.
quality as well.
Well, I can tell you this too. This is the thing that people learn. Uh, Usually, they learn it by having to face their fears. Is when you do something that you're really afraid to do,
Yeah.
right? And you embrace that terror of what you're afraid of. I'm telling you, one thing you'll notice is you feel the most alive, right?
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
people tend to really avoid pain. One thing pain reminds you of is you're still alive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're still breathing, man. If you're feeling it, you're still breathing. And I can tell you that even though it's not something that we want to live in, when you're in a state of pain. But I'll tell you one thing: if you can just kind of separate yourself from the pain a little bit sometimes, or the fear, you're like, wow, that's exhilarating. Whoa, you know,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah. That's
I remember being in Canada on a ski trip, and it was 40 below zero and windy as hell. And my buddy's like, "This is some miserable shit, man." And I go, "But you know you're alive right now, don't you?"
yes.
And
Yes.
he's like, "You're right." I go, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hell yeah, man! I mean, this is life, you know."
Yes.
Is embrace those things. You don't have to do that every day of your life, but I'm telling you what it does do. And the other thing, I'll tell you the other thing that struggle does is struggle makes you really appreciate when things go right.
Mm.
It
Mm.
really does. You
Yeah.
never
That's very
appreciate
true.
you never appreciate it the first time as much as you do the second time. And the reason is because when you've succeeded at something and then you are looking to fail at something and then you succeed again, but you had to break and thought, okay, I'm probably going to fail at this, but you don't, and then you succeed. You're like, man, this just everything tastes sweeter, everything smells better, the sun is brighter, right? It just
Yes.
is. And you only get that but because you have context, right? From staring down, staring down the dark things that you don't want to face.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. It yeah, it brought me back to, because I grew up in Minnesota. And man, those winters, like, I mean, they're harsh. And
Oh yeah.
I in my brain did churn it from a, like, something to run from, to where it would be invigorating, where if anyone's ever been in like the 40 below you're talking about, man, you feel every freaking follicle like instant freeze on your eyebrows and your nose, all of it. And it's one of those where I go, well, shit, that means I'm fucking alive, man. I'm feeling it. Like, I'm like, yes. With that. That's
Oh
so
yeah.
powerful. That's so powerful. So, all right, I got to ask you, let's start. You got a, I'll say, the dopest backdrop of anyone who's been on this show so far. We got what, John Wayne, we got Jimi Hendrix, we got, the fire, we got lava lamps. Um, is there significance to these things? And then there's also like a family picture, or like a,
That's my daughter when she got married. That's the
uh,
day she got married. That was me. That was me walking her down the aisle. She did well. She wasn't really down an aisle. I guess it was. It was out. It was in San Diego
okay.
on the beach. So we were walking down. We were headed toward the beach right there. Me walking her for her to get married. Yeah. And yeah, the significance to all this is just, you know, you can't see it all, but I've got surrounded by people that I admire for different reasons. I got Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Angus Young from AC/DC, of course, Jimi Hendrix. I got Eddie Van Halen, Johnny Cash, John Wayne, just fun, you know. So I like an environment where, you know, I've worked in a glass tower, you know, super triple A office space. That's not me, you know. I'm a very, you know, I'm not a Lamborghini kind of guy. I'm more of I have a Tesla. You know, I drive a Tesla because I like it.
Hey, cheers.
I'm pretty simple. Yeah, I'm pretty simple, you know. When it comes to my tastes and things, you know, I definitely like a nice lifestyle, but you know, it's not
flamboyant.
No, and it doesn't drive me. You know, I don't. My self-worth isn't wrapped up in how much money I make or how much I accumulate or anything like that. And it really has much more to do with how many lives can I touch. That's going to be driving. That's the thing that drives me much more is what can I do? And in our business, Mike, the business we're in, you know, that's the fastest route to success. Is the straightest line is be focused 100% on adding value to other people, right?
Yes.
Adding value to the lives of others. And the more, you know, Elon Musk said, I admire him. I admire a lot of business leaders. There's a lot of them I don't like, and there's ones that I do like. Elon Musk, he's a strange dude, right? But he's got a really interesting outlook on life. He said, he made a statement. I think that we should all look at things this way. I certainly do. He said, you know, I add a little tiny bit of value to a lot of people's lives. And that's why, you know, my business has been successful. He goes, but I admire people like teachers and nurses and police and that add a lot of value to few people's lives, right? And the thing I've always thought of is, you know, in your community and the family around you and your friends and all those kinds of things, you can make a big impact on a few lives. But think about some of the things that you can do. Like, I'll give you an example. So I have a friend, she's actually here up in Tahoe right now visiting. She's had some real success the last couple of years, but going back 4 years ago, her son has a terrible disease. It's a real rough disease to deal with. And she came to me, she's like, hey, I found this therapy down in Panama that we can do for him, but I don't have the money. And I said, well, how much does it cost? She's like, $28,000. And I said, done. We got him down there. He was probably going to die without it. 4 years later, he's disease free 4 years later.
Wow.
So she came up here. They come up last night and they're like, hey, we got something for you guys. And we're like, okay, cool. And it was a thank you card. I opened it up. It was a $28,000 check. She paid me back. Right.
Man, that
and I was
hurt,
like,
man.
Yeah. And I was like, Marguerite, we didn't expect you to pay us back. She goes, well, I'm in a position now because of some investments and things that have gone really right for her. She goes, I have to pay you back. And I'm like, I didn't even think about that ever, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, like that's an example of being in a position as a person that literally saved my friend's son's life. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You can make a big impact on a few lives. It's just as important. If you just make a big impact on one life, it makes the world a better place.
Hey guys, Michael Anthony here, and I have a question for you. Are you out of work or unhappy with your career? Are you tired of your boss giving you crappy raises? How about not being able to provide the life you want for you or your loved ones? Do you earn great money, but you're just tired of being someone else's bitch? If so, I invite you to visit workwithsymmetry.com/change to learn about the career that forever transformed the trajectory of my life. And it could change yours too. Like I said, this career isn't for everyone. But if you're unhappy where you're at, I encourage you to go to workwithsymmetry.com/change and take control of your life.
All right, we're back. You were saying, it feeds your soul.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I know we all hear about how helping others and all those kinds of things, you know, it really is, you know, you gotta, but in order to do that, you gotta help yourself first. You gotta work on yourself. It's like the airplane, when you're on the airplane, always put your mask on first before you put it, because passing out, you're not going to help anybody, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to work on yourself. And I think that's probably the hardest work to do, is to work on yourself, and the reason is because people are afraid what they're going to find. What I will tell you, what I have found, because it's such a big deal in our business, what I have found is that most people approaching it right are really, really, very pleasantly surprised with what they find when they start digging in. And
it's like looking for the boogeyman. Once you go looking, you realize it's really not as scary as your mind made out.
Yeah, and you're probably not nearly as screwed up as you think, right?
Yeah.
Generally speaking, you just got to look at it from a different angle, right? And our perspective needs to be altered. We got to alter our perspective, because when you do, sometimes, I'll give you an example. I had a woman that I worked with one time, and she was just a giant pain in the ass, right? Nobody liked her. She was effective, but it was like at a very high cost.
Okay.
And then we went through an exercise with Patrick Lencioni's book, and we went through the exercise. Yeah, and we went through an exercise where we got to know each other, which was, everybody gets about 30 minutes to really learn their life story. And when I found out her life story, I was just filled with empathy, because no wonder you're so difficult. She had no backstop. She had nobody to lean on, nobody to fall back on. She was raising her kids and her sister's kids, who dropped her kids off on her doorstep and vanished for 10 years, right?
Wow.
And all of a sudden, like, instead of being like, God, she's just such a pain in the ass, to filled with empathy, like, her name was Sherry. It's like, Sherry, just tell us all what we can do for you. And you know what it did? It changed her. She went from being difficult to just being driven and great to work with,
Well, it probably allowed those defenses, of her, trying to protect and survive. And so, prickly like a porcupine, to going, oh, people care. I can let down this wall. I can move, like it just became a win-win, positive feedback loop.
Yeah. And so she began to feel the empathy and understanding that everybody had for her. People started acting differently toward her. And when people acted differently toward her, she started acting different toward everybody else. And so take the time to learn about yourself, to understand what you're motivated by, what you're afraid of, and engage those things. Don't turn away from them. And I'm telling you, that's the most fertile ground in your life, is yourself, right? And into getting what you want.
So if there's somebody, because you just, you gave this example of powerful, $28,000 check saved a young, man's life. Mom's giving it back. Somebody watching this right now, on YouTube, and they're like, dude, that's freaking amazing. And I don't feel like I can do anything. You came from 5 generations of railroad builders to where you are today. What would you say to them if they feel like, did you reach a certain like threshold of financial to where you noticed yourself become a lot more benevolent, or did you choose that earlier on? Like what did that look like from your journey?
Well, I think that the thing that really changed for me was getting the focus off of me and getting the focus onto other people. And here's the thing: what happens when you do that is you have a much greater purpose. So, as an example, if you feel you can't make that difference, I'm telling you right now, you can. So, here's all you got to do: go out and become like a big brother, big sister, something like that, right? Where there are people in this world that will not only need somebody like you to help them, right? Their lives depend on it in certain ways, right?
Yeah.
What happens is when you go, okay, I'm gonna, like, for instance, when I got married, and I was telling you earlier, like my purpose became much greater than me when I went to work instead of, chasing girls, to I'm married now, I have a child, I'm buying a home, like all that became purpose. All of a sudden, working hard, I had a much better reason to go to work, and with a renewed discipline and approach, that because it wasn't about me, it was about us, right? And so when you find purpose that's greater than yourself, then the discomfort or whatever you want to call it with working hard and all that, it just melts away. It's just not a big deal, you know? Does that make sense?
That's good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's taking the focus off. It's not about what you're saying is it's not, we tell ourselves, oh, impact equals a certain dollar amount, when in fact it's the heart. And when our heart is aligned, then we find a way to make the world better, to be the change, with whether it's through our time, our energy, our resources, our finances, being an emotional, someone to call or whatever. It's just adding value to people in this world.
It is, but most importantly, it's about it's about a greater purpose than just a better house,
Yes.
better car. It's about
Purpose.
purpose, real purpose. You
Yeah.
know, where this isn't about me anymore. You know what I mean? It's about bigger things than me. It's about leaving this world in a better place than how you found it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it like the like, let's just say to the people that are watching right now don't know what to do. Like I said, go become a big brother, big sister. In some cases, that child's life will be the trajectory of that child's life will be completely altered by your
Yes.
involvement in their life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go to an old person's home and just sit and talk, hold their hand, talk to them, right? Go to a prison with people who are utterly hopeless, right?
Yeah.
And become a mentor. Whatever it is, go find something that makes your life really worth living and your work worth doing, so that you contribute beyond just what you want for yourself. And what will happen is all kinds of things will come to you that you were never expecting, because you're not focused on that anymore. And then it's about giving back. It's funny, a lot of the most successful people in the world, you look back at the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all these kind of people, is they work their whole life to accumulate all this wealth, and then they spend the rest of their lives giving it all away. And they realize it's like getting it was meaningless. Giving it away is the only reason I did it in the first place. They didn't learn that till they all started giving it away, right?
That's no, that I remember a few years ago hearing John Maxwell say that, basically he's dedicated the rest of his life to giving his money away, and seeing that it's it's going to the way he wants, and that's powerful. So okay.
And not only that, but last thing I will say on that, Mike,
Okay.
when I think we all realize that everything you have right now isn't even yours. It's going to somebody else when you're gone, right? Like you're just temporary, like, you're renting everything, it's not even yours.
That's a deep, that's an insightful viewpoint. Like I hear people use that through a spiritual lens, or things of that nature. Yet it's that's very legitimate from just a stewardship mindset, Brian, of
Bingo.
Of it look, the oxygen, the resources, like money is made up. And so, the I didn't create the wood. Trees were here before I was here. They're going to be here after. The property, it's being passed on. Things shift and governments rise and fall, and, all this sort of stuff over the scope of time. It's just stewarding from one generation to the next with whatever I am able to be entrusted with, and am found, able to be, I guess maybe worthy, and also honorable with, because it's would you say, in your journey, it, are have you found that the more faithful you are with what you have, the more you have? Or have you, or have you found a different journey than that? Like, if you think that's bullshit, please say it.
I've definitely found that, that when you're focused on the right things,
Yeah.
right? When you're focused with the right intentions, things come much easier, right? When you're focused on with the wrong intentions, it seems to just be it just seems like I can never get off the starting line, right?
Yeah.
When I'm focused on me and what I want, I'm frustrated. I'm not happy. I'm, not satisfied, all that kind of thing. When I'm focused on the right things, it gets a lot easier. Now that, there are analytical and business decisions that need to be made. One of the quickest ways to go broke is just make all your decisions from your heart. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
And the
Yep.
reason is because your heart can lead you astray real quick, and your mind can lead you astray real quick. It's a combination, it's a team effort, right?
Team effort.
And so I will definitely say that things come much easier when my priorities are right.
And by that, you would define that as outward focused. Would you say that's accurate?
I
Or
would say
how do you
it's
define what right is?
being focused on um, the bigger picture than just me, right?
Okay. Yep.
So
Okay. So
being
outward,
focused on,
purpose driven.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
yep. Now the
Okay.
inward stuff,
Yep.
the inward stuff is really critical too,
That
because
kind of foundational from what you were
yes,
saying earlier.
when you want to focus inward, you want to focus on your fears and your limitations and all those things. You have to stare them down at some point, and the way to do that is to go inward, that inward journey, right? Because what people do, and I'm no exception to this because I'm guilty of this sometimes too, is when we don't want to deal with it, we go outward to avoid it, right?
Yeah.
We distract ourselves. It's the reason my first marriage fell apart was it rather than deal with myself, my problems, and my marital problems. Success allowed me to distract myself with a bunch of superficial shit that didn't mean anything, and I ignored where the work needed to be done. And by the time I figured that out, it was done. Right? The house burned down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when is you want to go that inward journey and dealing with your demons and your limitations and all the things that you need to correct with yourself. That's an inward journey, right? The outward journey is making the world a better place, is focusing on things other than yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does. So, all right, to pivot just a little bit here, from a standpoint of your journey, you started out very, humble beginnings, legs up versus, you weren't born in a slum in Calcutta, India, and like, favorable conditions, most of which were outside of your control. You're taking the, full advantage of that. You work your way through. So then, you start your own company, you end up selling it, do some other stuff. You're back in, business wise, and so let me ask, if you're willing to answer this, starting from zero, like, what does your net worth look like today?
Uh, I really
Or is
don't
that
know
something, do you
because
even track it? Do you even track your net worth?
not really. I mean, it's probably, and I mean this in all humbleness. It's not something I brag about because to me, it's a
Yeah.
bit, I mean, I've spent a whole life doing this. I would say it's probably a couple hundred million, between, because I mean, I'm involved. I've invested in a lot of different things. I've invested in, real estate and businesses and
Well, and
what
that's where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to go from that standpoint of, okay, you started here, humble beginnings. Okay, we'll say a couple 100 million. And what does that currently look like for you, from a
well,
divestment and investment?
it's all over the map. I even sometimes forget about things, right? Like, yeah, you own this piece of this and you own that piece of that. Here's what I think is probably the most appropriate,
Okay.
because I on paper, I'm 50. I'll be 55 in October. On
Okay.
paper, I look 80. On paper, I look 85 because my investments are pretty conservative. You know, I like
Okay.
things. I invest in people, usually in the right people. I would rather invest in the right person with a decent idea than a killer idea and an asshole, right?
Got it. Yep.
Because businesses they
Rise and fall.
fail on people and their limitations. So a couple things I will tell you. First thing, the best investment you can ever make is in yourself. It really is.
All right. I
Don't-
just, boom. I say that and like, man, thank you. Like, yes, that's
Yeah,
power. It's
so I,
powerful for me. Like that
uh,
was the most powerful thing, realizing that in my life. And
yeah,
so you saying that right now, I know somebody listening, somebody watching, it's going to transform their life. Just listen to that, guys. Listen to what he just said. You are the best investment you can make.
yeah. Now let me qualify that because I've learned over time. My philosophy on this has changed. I used to be a
Okay.
voracious reader. Okay, so read a lot. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Now I'm really picky about what I read. I'm like ultra picky about what I read. So what I would suggest everybody do is this: find material. Like we participate in Giant, and there's lots of great organizations like Giant.
Yep.
Okay. What I would suggest you do is find material that's really quality, right? And that could be Tony Robbins. I like Tony Robbins stuff. That's stuff I used to read a lot back in the day.
Yep.
John Maxwell's got great stuff. There's all kinds of great
Yeah.
quality information out there you can find. But what I would suggest you do is take a deep dive on a very narrow set of materials. Okay, don't read
So
100 books.
intentional.
Yeah, don't read 100 books because then what happens is it's like I'm going to spend a lot of time and effort on. I'm going to, I want to spend a lot of. I'm going to cover a lot of ground. No, you want to deep dive on something that's really good and good quality information that's going to be very helpful for you. So investing in yourself, and that investment is going to be mostly time because the materials aren't expensive, right? So find something and deep dive on it and be committed to it. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to, master a million things. You just gotta get your mind right, and you gotta focus and commit to materials that's going to help you do that. It's going to help get your mind right. Okay. The second most important investment you can make is in a business that you have some function in that you can actually improve the functionality and that business. Now, so if you work somewhere and you really believe where you work, commit to being the best version of yourself, committing to making that business really hum, and invest in that business, right? Not just your time, but your money. So your 401k, things like that, right? If you believe in the business you're working at, then you put it all into it, okay?
Okay.
Or go start a
And
business.
when, just to clarify, when you say your 401k, you're what I think you're saying is like if you're working at a publicly traded company, buy that stock in your 401k, or are you saying just invest in a 401k wherever it's invested?
Well, the reason you want to work, the reason you want to invest in a 401k, really, I'm not a believer in 401ks for a couple of reasons in a lot of ways, but in another way, I really would, because if they'll match your money, and let's say they match your money like up to a certain amount,
Yep.
well, where are you going to double your money immediately anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So
True
that's important. So, but if you know and you can make a difference in that business, then you're putting your time and effort into something, and if you believe in it and you're doing a good job and you can move the needle, why would you not invest in it, right? Right, because the whole point of an investment is to make a return on that investment that puts you in a better position financially. The other one is owning your own business. That is, something that where you're putting your heart and soul into something that you can make, again, move the needle on, where you actually, can make a difference. I am not a gambler, but I'm very much a big risk taker when it comes to myself. I'll gamble on myself all day long, right? I don't like Las Vegas because I'm the odds are against me to begin with, right?
Yep.
Uh,
you lose before you walk in the door.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll take big risks on me, right? Because I know what I'm going to do. So if, I look at investing that way, Mike, as I look at investing is the ideas have to be solid. They don't have to be earth shattering. We know that we don't have to reinvent the world, but they have to be things that are worthwhile. I'm a big believer in the future. If you do you want to invest in the present or the past? Or do you want to invest in the future? Just pick and choose very carefully, but you got to believe in the people, because it's the people that's going to make the difference. And if the people are people that you think these are solid people, these are things that I believe in, and you're involved, whether you're directly involved or even passively involved, you got to be involved. And that's the way I believe. And the other thing I believe in is real estate, just be very careful, but do it the right way. There's a saying, and it's true, God ain't making any more of it, right? And you can stand on it. It's a thing. It's a real tangible thing. So are ideas, but when it comes to investing, I'm kind of an odd duck in that I'm pretty conservative with what I invest in, but I'm very bullish on the right people.
Okay. So let me ask this: as far as we've had, for those that are regular watchers and listeners, there's been a few episodes we've done talking about crypto, and it's one of those where I am a big fan. I also, though, am not a big fan because there's a lot of bullshit out there. And it's one of those where I feel like I kind of half stepped into some of it like 8-10 years ago. And then I was like, oh shit, okay, maybe there's something here. And I've spent years and years and years studying it to understand it. What's, like we just recently had, Elon, investing $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. What, like, do you get in any of that, or what's your approach with crypto and just regular?
I have not. Here's the thing. I'm not really qualified to talk much about crypto. I'll give you a couple perspectives. One is Elon Musk invested $1.5 billion he can afford to lose. Okay.
Yeah.
That's important to know. I think he's worth $150 billion or something. So that's 1% of his net worth.
Well, it was like 15% of Tesla's cash reserves. So, they put 15% of Tesla's cash reserves in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I really don't know enough about Bitcoin or about crypto. What I will tell you is this. There's one thing I will tell you. I know a guy, a good friend of mine's brother, who I know very well, who walked away from Wall Street with $200 million 10 years ago.
Okay.
Right. And I watched him lose 170 of his 200 million in crypto. Okay. And he knew what he was doing.
Ooh.
So here's the problem. He sold all that maybe a year ago. His 200 million is probably with 400 or 500 million now.
Yep.
It's very volatile. It's very volatile.
Yes.
And I would just be anything that's really, really volatile. I lost a lot of money in the 2000 .com bubble. Yep. And so I'm then that made me very cautious with investing. So if you really, really understand what you're doing, right, and you're doing your homework and all that, more power to you. I don't have the stomach for it myself.
Yep. Okay. That was it's one of those, it's like, it's all around and all over. I have a video I'll send you of actually some CEOs talking to other CEOs, and they were actually even discussing the insurance industry moving forward regarding, and I'll say specifically Bitcoin, not just crypto, in general. with that. And I'd say that that's been one of my biggest concerns for saying anything about it up until just a couple episodes is, there are so many people, and I've said this in every episode where I talk about it, so many people lose so much money because they don't understand. They go in with like, FOMO, and if you're chasing something, that's like, you've already lost, on it.
Yeah.
From that standpoint. So, okay. So invest in yourself, invest in, if you don't own your own business, invest in what I heard is it's kind of an outgrowing of investing in yourself through developing the skills and abilities to your best of your ability while working for someone else. And if you don't have a desire to, become an entrepreneur or whatever, then just get investment in that company because you're making it, you have an inside track, you understand that. Then invest in yourself through having your own company, something where there's a tie to it, which was what I think is beautiful with what you guys have done, with symmetry and just as far as for us to be able to have something we own, from that standpoint, and then invest beyond your own company to you're investing in people first business ventures. Like, you will take a good idea with a great person over a great idea with a good person. Is that what I heard? Yep.
Absolutely.
And then land and like just traditional things.
Real estate, my ideas on real estate are really pretty simple in that most of the people I know that have made been long-term successful in real estate have always been invested in multi-unit types of properties, storage facilities, apartments, multifamily, anything that spreads the risk around to lots of things. Look, there's nothing wrong with buying a rental home or something like that. The problem is when somebody vacates it, you got zero in it. If you own an apartment complex with 100 units and 2 people move, it's no big deal.
It's 2%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Versus 100. Awesome. Okay. Well, brother, thank you so much, Brian, for your time. And guys, be sure to like, subscribe, share, just keep kicking ass in your journey. Believe in yourself, and we will see you on the next show. Peace.
That's a wrap. Congrats on investing in yourself with the Contract CFO Show, hosted by Michael Anthony. If you've enjoyed today's show, please leave a comment and tell a friend to check it out on YouTube or however they get their podcast on. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Michael Anthony TV. Visit michaelanthonytv.com to find show notes and past episodes. Plus, you can join the conversation by submitting questions and topics you want to hear. And remember, tomorrow can be better than today. The choice is yours. P.S. Don't be a dumbass. Remember, this is a conversation and not meant to be personal or legal advice.